Okay, welcome to this video that is orienting new folks joining an ongoing Zoom meeting for people interested in work that reconnects evolution with respect to power, privilege, and oppression. Some of us have been meeting on a regular basis for a couple of years now. Um, I began being involved with this call in preparation for some workshops that I had coming up, and some other folks like Belinda Griswold and Sarah Nahar were getting ready for some programs, and we just wanted to be in touch with other facilitators about how to facilitate the work, better attending to how oppression was showing up in those spaces. And that was really nourishing for me. And we also dived into not just looking at our own facilitation, but also attending to some harm that was happening in workshops. So yeah, I've stayed involved since the beginning, really wanting to hold this work that I love so much and some evolution and transformation. And when we first began, we were meeting once a week. Uh, at some point, we met once a month, and now we're meeting twice a month. So there are two times, a Tuesday evening and a Thursday morning, depending on which time zone you're in. But we added the additional time zone to be inclusive of more places around the earth. That's what I'm going to put in for just letting you know a little bit about what this group has been. And now I'd like to open it up and ask, is there anyone else who would like to add to the history of this group?
Sounds good.
I could just say that we did prepare in the early days. We spent a lot of time preparing some documents, some of which are on the Work That Reconnects website, sort of explaining our overall purpose and making some suggestions for facilitation. So that material is available on the website, and we may put more up in time.
Okay, so another thing we wanted to share with you in this welcome orienting video is a little bit about the purpose of our group. We've been touching on a few things with introducing you a little bit to the history of it, but Kurt, can I pass it to you to add a little bit more specificity about what it is that we come together to do?
Sure. There's a couple of things to me that are really critical about why we exist, and that has to do with the first is that it has to do with the fact that we began to understand and see, and people were experiencing directly harm within Work That Reconnects spaces. People of color were experiencing harm in terms of their participation, and that was the motivating factor for us to come together. So it's the purpose for us to direct our attention to those harms and how they are actually evident within the work, and how we can actually correct it, and the ways that we can find new exercises, new practices, and new ways of actually interacting and being in relationship with one another, with that consciousness centered within what the work is. So I think that's pretty much it. It is an evolving practice. I do want to say that. So the purpose, in fact, deepens and evolves and expands as we've gone on. And I think just by building in our relationships as well, that is also true. That getting to know one another and hear one another and our difficulties in trying to attend to these issues within the work really has helped each of us move forward. So I think that's kind of where I am with it. Let's see if there's anyone else that wants to add or something. Anybody? Yeah, Rachel.
I was just going to say that the group has been really important for me in terms of opening my eyes and being able to look at the work in a new way, through a decolonizing lens, through an anti-oppression lens, through an anti-racism lens. And I think this is an incredibly valuable plank that's being built into the work that reconnects.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, the reality is that the power, oppression, and privilege that exist within this U.S. culture exist in any institution that was founded here and whose origin came from here. So we could not escape that, and so that's and it's this is extremely healthy to identify it and work on it and move with it, and it can only serve this work, to make it more powerful. So, and Rachel, you had something you wanted to say.
So yeah, I was thinking about it, that question of what am I doing here, I'm not a facilitator of the work that reconnects particularly. It's come up a lot in my work. But my experience with a deep dive really began right at the turn of the current American administration. And I found myself in a room where I was led to be quite vulnerable about what it felt like to be one of the people who was there on scholarship, who was there, certainly one of the probably least quote unquote privileged of those in the room. And I expressed that and shared what was happening for me in that experience. And I think it while other things were happening within the community, and it began to happen even later, I don't know, for some reason I was called to a convening that was particularly focused around, back to the history, it happened at Canticle Farms. That's where I met Kurt and Constance, and Joseph and Arvinda, around identifying some of the patterns of harm and the harm that was coming up. And so I was dancing in on a tightrope, as a person of color. I was dancing on this tightrope between finally having an expression and an opportunity to have this discussion with people. Kurt, your tenacity and your dedication to these changes happening within white spaces and within, excuse my language, within our many different facets of what's happening within grassroots and even deeper rooted communities, it was remarkable to me. And everyone here has been such a beautiful presence as I dip my toe into such hard conversations with people who are as a Black, Indigenous woman of color. It's not always safe in many spaces. And so it's been really, really blessed for the last 2 years to be able to participate in these conversations and to be heard and to be honored and to feel welcomed in a community where a lot of the balance of power can appear skewed, right? And so it's a blessing to be here, and I'm so excited to think about a widening of this group and this conversation.
Thanks, Rachel. So where do we go now? Is that sufficient, do you think?
I would add one little piece, because being a facilitator who delves into issues of power, religion, oppression, it's not just a nice place to come and try out some things, but to also get some really solid support around things that have happened and how to look at them, and a lot of reflection back. And that's been really valuable to me, to have this group to help to figure out this journey that we're all on together. So I really appreciated that.
Yes, I think in CAP, then we could say, or encapsulated as, it's first to address the issues of harm, and then second is to give support to folks across the board who come in as facilitators or who come in at all, so that we can use this work to address the issues of our time. I mean, this is a huge moment that we're in. And I feel like we really are, we've got a cutting edge, you know, an extremely creative opportunity here, and this group is certainly that. And so we welcome you to come in, and hope that you'll join us. Who's next?
Sarah.
Sarah, I'm not able to hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Fantastic. We give each other all sorts of the support in this group: tech support, moral support. And so, yeah, the more that you show up, the more power that you get in this group. This group is informal in the sense that it doesn't have an official place within the network of the work that reconnects, but the network itself views itself as informal and constantly moving too. And so we're definitely in the constellation of what's happening, but we do have people here who are network weavers or who have direct connections to network weavers, and that also relates to the staff within the work that reconnects, and relates to connecting with Joanna and her staff and others, and many people like that. But for this group, especially, the more that you show up, the more that we get to know you, and the more someone, you know, you can have power in the group. And we also do honor the people who helped to get this started, but for reasons of schedule aren't able to still be with us. And so we have an email listserv that we also use and we write on, and people can share with one another there. And we have some really, really good interactions on there. And at the same time, we try not to have it so high traffic that it's overwhelming. But we look forward to seeing you and meeting you and connecting. So please pass this along to whomever as well, and help us get the word out about the evolving edge of the work that reconnects.
So I'm supposed to talk a little bit about who we are, and just basically, a lot of us are facilitators that are really interested in improving our facilitation skills, and being more mindful and aware, and hopefully even correcting some of the harms that have been done in the past and may still be done because of our conditioning in the larger society. But we also have, as Rachel pointed out, people who are just connected to the work, or love the work and have experienced it and are concerned about its moving and evolving forward. So there's no criteria for joining this group other than an interest in what we're doing, and certainly at least some sense of what the work that reconnects is about, so that, you know, you understand the language, and when we talk about the spiral, you know what the spiral is, that kind of thing. And anyone want to add to that? I think maybe we're done, and I hope you become, whoever's viewing this orientation video, becomes part of who we are.
Welcome.
Hope to see you soon.